All right, getting started here. Let's go ahead and go live on LinkedIn. This is the Remarkable Edge, excuse me, live series show, episode 3. I'm your host, Dr. Vernita Glenn-White. Thank you all so much for joining me. If you're coming in live, let me know that you are here and where you are joining us from. If you're catching the replay, go ahead and comment hashtag replay and let me know where you are joining us from as well. So in today's episode, we are talking about the $1 million leadership shift. And it is not what you think. This is about how to think like a CEO, not just an employee. Now, let me put this disclaimer out there. This is not to say that everyone needs to just jump ship, always be, be an entrepreneur or be an executive or always be in those positions. That's not it, because we all need employees. Some of us love our jobs and everything. So this is not about, downing any employees. I was an employee for a very long time and I actually loved my career. But this is just about thinking about the mind shift and how I became more successful in my professional career, even though I was fired, but that's a different topic. But the things that I did there, I started operating differently and shifting my mindset. So there are things that you can do and the way that you can accomplish certain things by shifting your perspective, even while you are an employee. And I promise you, doors will open, whether that's in your professional life, whether that's in your life in multiple areas, or even in your business. I also realized that starting in my entrepreneurial journey, even I just had this revelation that I was still acting like an employee when I was having my own business. And it was like, some things have to change. You have to shift your perspective. So I want to put that disclaimer, excuse me, out there as we are moving forward. And so don't just tune out and say, well, I'm not in a leadership role, so I don't want to listen. No, I want you to listen to it so that you can either use these things now or later on in your life. So put it in your toolbox. All right. So most leaders are highly skilled. You are highly skilled if you're listening to me right now, but you may feel stuck in certain areas, not because you're not talented, but because you are trapped in like execution mode. There's another disclaimer. When I say execution mode, that doesn't mean that you don't implement, right? So just listen to what I'm saying. So you may focus on things um on just getting things done, whether setting an agenda, shifting the market, or designing systems that create wealth and influence. And I'm putting out these disclaimers because this is a newer series and I don't want you to be tuned out or turned off when I talk about income or wealth or things like that, because wealth isn't just about money, right? Of course, we need money like a resource to get those things going and our dreams and our visions and to fund those things. But we're talking about a holistic life. There are about 12 to 18 areas of your life that we can up level and fulfill, and that is wealth. But let's not, forget that money is also involved, but not just so you can stack it up, but what are you going to do out in the world? And you have to be a leader of money and a leader of wealth to get the desired results that you are looking for. All right. So welcome. That was a long introduction, but welcome to this power packed episode of the Remarkable Edge live series show. And if you are new here, I am Dr. Vernita Glenn-White. I go by Dr. V, your brilliant solutionist, and I work with high level entrepreneurs and business owners and career professionals in the areas of high performance leadership, strategic thinking, and affluent level influence. So let me know if that's you. So if you are watching live, drop the fire emoji or any type of emoji. I love emojis. I talk emojis. I speak emojis. So drop your favorite emoji down in the comments if you're watching live, or just stay tuned and listen for the keyword that I want you to drop in the comments so I know that you are following along with this particular episode. Because this episode is about to challenge everything you thought about leadership, everything you thought you knew, and everything that you think you know about leadership. So this is episode 3. And today we're talking about something that separates the truly powerful leaders from the overworked professionals. This is the $1 million leadership shift, how to think like a CEO and not just an employee. And so before we dive into this episode, I am hosting a 5-day live workshop called the Affluent Leader Intensive with a few bonus sessions. So it'll be a total of 9 days, actually. And we start February 25th this month, next week. But you can register now to get early access about some things that we're doing behind the scenes. And you can learn more either in the featured section if you're watching on LinkedIn, or go to drvernitaglenn-white.com/affluent leader and to get more information about that. All right, so now back to our episode. Here's the deal. Most leaders believe that working hard and doing more and being highly skilled is what creates success. But that's the biggest lie in leadership today. Execution doesn't make you powerful, but thinking like a CEO does. Remember, you don't need to be a CEO to think like a CEO. And then I'm pretty sure you can see some CEOs who don't think like CEOs. So this is more than just a position or a title. And if you don't shift your mindset or your approach, you will always be the most overworked, under leveraged, and replaceable person in the room. And even if you're owning your own business, you can still be replaceable because your clients and your customers may be like, you know what, I think we can find someone better. So this also applies to you as well. But don't get me wrong, because we need to be in action and implement the things that we've learned or the insights that we've gathered, but we don't have to work ourselves to the level of exhaustion or burnout. So let me know if that resonates with you. If you're feeling exhausted and burning out, that doesn't mean you need to keep executing more. You just need to approach it differently. So if you are resonating with this, or if it sounds like you, just go ahead and comment our special word for this episode, which is CEO shift. Comment that down below, whether you're watching live or on the replay. So now let's talk about the leadership execution trap. Most people in leadership positions aren't actually leading. They are managing. There is a difference, and that is a problem. A lot of us have been conditioned to believe that the hardest working, most skilled people to rise to the top, most skilled people rise to the top. But in reality, was something happening with the camera. But I told you this is a live series show. But we've been conditioned and trained like that. You have the most skills, and those people are the ones that get promoted. But that's not always true. The people that are getting promoted or getting the opportunities and things like that are the people who are looking at the big problems, who are creating scalable solutions, and who are not too busy to be available to build influence. How many of you have been working so hard and you've been busy and hoping that someone notices your work, and you keep getting passed over? Even in your business, I have found myself in that trap, constantly creating things instead of creating opportunities and relationships. And I'm like, well, why am I not getting a certain level of business? Because I've been too busy instead of really focusing on scalable solutions, especially for other people. And the same to you if you are working in a service-based business. So consider this. You have person A, who's highly skilled, hardworking leader. They're always in the meetings. They're solving problems, and they keep everything moving. So keep that person in mind. Then you have person B, who has built a reputation for strategic thinking, problem prevention, and high value decision making. Who do you think is getting promoted? Let me know down below before I reveal it to you. And if you're watching the replay, put it down before I say the answer. Now, you may think person A because they're seen as the most essential, but guess what? They are the ones that's replaceable. Person B is the one who is seen as a high value leader who can shift an entire organization or team or insert whatever. And that's who gets the $1 million opportunities. Now, I'm not saying that, it's going to be like the dollar amount $1 million, but let's think about that in terms of value. $1 million level value, even though it may not translate into actual tangible $1 million, but the level of value, which can translate eventually into money. But just think about that, opportunities and resources and value like that. So the problem isn't a lack of skill. If you're listening to this and you're a high level entrepreneur, career professional, executive, you have all the skills, right? So it's not a skills problem. The problem is that you're probably playing the wrong game and you're thinking like an employee instead of a CEO. And remember, even if you are currently an employee, you still, if you want to up level, you have to shift your way of thinking. So let's talk about the power shift model. There are three major shifts that you need to make to break free from the leadership execution trap and start the leadership execution trap and start thinking like a CEO. So the first shift is understanding the illusion of hard work. I have been there. I have 5 degrees. I have worked in several professional spaces. So I do understand working hard. But on the other side of that, I realized that it was an illusion, and grinding harder actually slowed me down, and it may have slowed you down as well. So most professionals believe that the harder they work, the more successful they'll be. Let me tell you something. High level leadership is not about working harder. It's about working smarter, strategically, and selectively. I believe that's something that's been left out. We've heard that before. Work smarter, not harder. Work smarter, not harder. But they also need to include work strategically and selectively. Like there are 3 S's that need to go along with that. So think about this example. You look at the world's top CEOs and investors and thought leaders and ask yourself, are they working 80-hour weeks solving daily tasks? And you can go and Google, top level, insert millionaires, billionaires, entrepreneurs, thought leaders, whatever. Their morning routines are just daily routines, and you'll see that they're not working 80 hours on that a week. They're making high level decisions, they're building networks, and they're leveraging other people's time, skills to multiply their results. Now, don't mistake this for never putting in long hours. I believe when you're at the beginning of something and you're still trying to figure things out, you may have to put in long hours. But where a lot of us, I know I've gotten into this trap, and you may have gotten into that trap, you don't have to stay there. And you have to release that guilt of, if I'm not working all these hours, then I'm not, successful. That's an illusion. So again, you may start off putting in those hours because whatever your thoughts are about Jeff Bezos or some of the top people, I've looked at some of their routines in their early years. They did work these long hours, but they learned how to leverage in those things that I talked about to make sure that they're coming out of that role, because they had to shift. Even if you're self-employed, you still have to shift from an employee mindset to like a CEO way of thinking if you want to lead multiple areas of your life. So let's talk about a key shift. One thing you have to do is to stop asking. Yes, stop asking. How can I get this done? And start asking, who can I put in position to handle this so I can focus on the next power move? Now, I personally had to do this when I was a college professor. Now, again, this is an example of, I wasn't a CEO. This had nothing to do with the business that I was building on the side. This was me working as a college professor. So I learned how to leverage my students and to doing certain things and creating certain things so that I can focus on the high level activities of being a college professor that was beyond just teaching, because there were 3 areas similar to building a network, high level decision making, and things like that. So I learned how to do that. And now I'm like, wait a minute, why did I forget about that skill set and then move it into my business? So that was an example of, you can start doing this if you're still a career professional or an employee. It's just how you are shifting and managing, leveraging what you are doing and the people that you are working with, not using them, but strategically leveraging them. So another shift to think about is the decision hierarchy, how affluent leaders make fewer but more powerful decisions. We all have experienced decision fatigue, but now since we're shifting our way of thinking to go to our next level, we have to start focusing on those high level impact decisions. So average leaders make hundreds of small decisions every day. That's where decision fatigue comes from, while elite leaders make fewer but exceptionally more impactful decisions. This goes for other people, and not for other people, but this goes for other areas of your life as well. Remember, I said there are about, between 12 and 18 areas of your life. If you stick with me, I'll start talking more about those areas, because I do believe in a full, holistic, focused life. Not just, your professional and your business side, but multiple areas. But you have to learn how to make those key decisions in all areas. So not just for business, not just for your career. So you have to operate like a CEO without the title in multiple areas of your life. I already talked about Jeff Bezos, but you can insert Warren Buffett or any other billionaire CEO, and they focus on just a handful of high impact decisions per year, not per day, not per month, not per quarter, per year. Now, I'm pretty sure they didn't all start off that way, so it's like, well, I went from making 100 decisions every day to like 3 or 4 a year. You can slowly work your way up to that. Start looking at key decisions. You may focus on things like every month or every quarter and things like that. But this is really about strategic thinking and for you to look ahead and put your position in. So put yourself in position to lead your life. So one shift that you can think about is, what am I always making the same decisions about? What can kind of like automate? What can I automate so I don't have to think about that anymore? That's one way to start, and then start working your way up to only making a few high impact decisions per year. And you have to think about shifts, those decisions they think about those decisions that shift entire markets or industries. Depending on your vision, your calling, your purpose, you may be an industry titan in the making, or you may be someone that's focusing on your local area, your family, or your community. Whatever it is, I believe whatever sphere of influence you're called to lead, the decisions that you're making, they're called to shift those areas. So I want you to think about that. Your decision making is not just, what you are going to do today, but what are you putting in place that can shift potential industries, markets, communities, families, insert your whatever. Now, I know you're like, well, those people are well known. They got all the money, they're all, all the influence, and all the things, but you don't get to cut yourself out or, take your name out of the hat per se. So I've worked with high level advisors. Some of them have been multi-million-dollar business owners. Some of them are like top leaders, but they're not well known, right? They're top leaders maybe in their company, but you wouldn't know them in these social media streets. But they also operate like that. So when I started doing a comparison, I was like, well, they're still executing at the highest level for themselves, and they're still making these high impact decisions without, the quote unquote influence, but they approach it like an affluent leader, right? Let me know if you're tracking with me. They're still operating in this way. So that doesn't mean that you have to be a certain type of person. It's this decision to be that person and start making the decisions that are only focused on high impact activities. So let me know if you're tracking with me. So that means anyone, including you, can start operating like this, one shift at a time. So another shift to consider is, like I said, instead of making 100 reactive decisions every day, a lot of us react. So I want you to track like how many times you react to something instead of being proactive about it. So if you track how many times you've reacted, it probably is up in the the 100 range, right? Or probably higher than that. So what you can start doing is focus on making 3 to 5 high impact decisions per month, like I said before, that completely shift the game for your organization, your family, your career, or insert your whatever, right? So you're being proactive about with 3 to 5 decisions that you can currently make. Another shift, talking about the CEO identity shift. All of this is really rooted in identity, but that's another topic for another day. So you have to rewire how you think, how you operate, and how you move in the world. It's a ripple effect. And you have to start thinking bigger than yourself. I know for me, when I started making these shifts, things are better when I start thinking about people outside of me. Because if I stay focused on myself, then, it's easy to think about what's not working and things like that. But if I'm going to be the CEO leader of my life, my business, whatever, those other areas of my life, it's like, how does my life and the decisions that I'm making going to impact others? So thinking about how I want to operate in the world, even though everyone in the world may not know me, but things that I can do every day, again, it's that ripple effect. So the most powerful shift you can make isn't external, it is internal. And I always say you have to do the internal work to get the outer results that you desire. So until you see yourself as a high level leader, then you will always operate like an employee, always operating in a reactive state. Now, again, this doesn't mean that if you are an employee that you are less than or you're not doing things right. This is not it. Because again, even as an employee, you can start making shifts and thinking differently in multiple areas of your life. So I want to just keep saying that it is a mindset shift, not anything that have to do with the position or title. But when you think about it, even when I was an employee, when I had first started, it was like, well, I just go with the flow. I do what they tell me, and then that's it. But then if you want to take charge of and then let me back up. And then I would start operating like that in multiple areas of my life. And I was like, wait a minute, that's not how I want this to happen. So I started making shifts in my career, and I started making shifts in different in my personal life, and I started breaking down my personal life and start making shifts and leading and saying, this is what I want, and taking charge. So that's what this is all about. So think about this. And you can, I'm going to say promote it, but you can think about going to a next level in wherever you are focusing on, right? So executives don't get promoted because they do more work. They get promoted because they think differently, operate differently, and command respect differently. How many times have you seen people, if you're working in the office or in an organization, and you see somebody get promoted? And my mind just immediately went somewhere when I was working at a high school. And it was like, what? This person became this, they got into the pool to be an assistant principal. They want this person to be an assistant principal. Are you serious? But then looking back on it, then this person, I'm not going to say their name, they were out there talking to the administrators. They were going to different meetings. They were doing all the things, making themselves known and showing that they can, command the respect or operate differently. Now, they didn't have the full skill set to remain there. So they got the position and they struggled, but that's another topic. But they did things to get themselves promoted, right? So you see, they started doing things differently, and they did a lot of external stuff. They didn't do any internal stuff. That's why they weren't as successful as they could have been. But for the time being, whatever they were doing, externally worked for them. So you need a combination of both. So you can't just say, well, I'm gonna do the inner work, and then you don't do anything differently. So, and then you can't just do the external stuff to get noticed and seen and all of that. They both have to go together. So again, there's another shift. Instead of waiting on someone to acknowledge your leadership, you have to start moving like the CEO of your own career, your brand, your family, your legacy, your future, all of those things, because CEOs don't wait for permission. Now, again, this is beyond the title, because we've seen CEOs who have the title, but they still can't lead their organizations because they're still waiting on permission. So again, CEO is not just a title. I like to say it's the be the chief expansion officer of YOU, your own universe. And you don't wait for permission to do anything, because you are empowering yourself to create impact and let the results speak for themselves. Now, this is different than just doing work and hoping somebody would notice your hard work. I used to be like that for the longest time. Like, if I work hard, if I do all these things, people will eventually notice. Not all the time. You have to put yourself in position so the people can get noticed, whatever that may look like for you. I don't want to give you a blanket of things, because, it depends on what your vision is or your next goals are. And there are different strategies for different things, but you can't just constantly, work hard, grinding with your head down without taking charge and putting yourself in position to be in front of these, what we say, multi-million-dollar opportunities, or these high-level opportunities, so you can take advantage of those. All right. So let me know what resonated with you. What shift resonated with you? Comment CEO shift down below if you are resonating with this episode. And then after you comment that, let me know one of the key shifts that you've noticed, either as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, or as a career professional. What have you noticed? And then what have you found yourself doing? Like, you know what? I have been acting like this. I have been reactive, and now I want to be proactive about that. So let me know down in the chat. What's one, mindset shift you need to make today to start operating like the CEO instead of an overworked leader? Comment down below. I think I can see some comments if you're watching on the replay. If you're watching this on the replay, make sure you just come back and do a comment, because I don't know if your comment will show up if you are actively watching the replay. So you may have to just watch it and then come back and comment. It may take an extra step, but please do me that favor and go ahead and do that. All right. So we are wrapping up, because I do want this to be a dialogue and not just a monologue. So if I can't see you, I will engage with you down in the comments, or you can send me a message, because I do respond. And if this episode hits home for you, guess what? This is just the beginning. I'll be diving deeper inside the Affluent Leader Intensive, which starts February 25th at 11 a.m. Eastern, where we are tackling the biggest gaps that are making high performers, and that we're tackling those biggest gaps that are keeping high performers and from reaching their next level. So high performers or high achievers, insert your word. Like, you have risen to the occasion. You have been successful in certain areas, but you know that there's a gap. You know that you can go even higher or go even further. So we are addressing those things, and it's not your typical, approach to what you think success is going to be. But you do have to register to get access. We are starting some behind the scenes things now, and we'll be going on Zoom and in the private community. So I won't be streaming this live. So that's why I'm asking you to register. It is complimentary because I want you to show up. I would love your feedback, your insights, and things like that. It's like my business coming out party. So I'm excited about that. So you go to drvernitaglenn-white.com/affluent leader so that you can get early access or register. And you can keep doing it as we go through the event because we start on February 4th. It is going to be a total of 9 days, but it's 5 core days with some bonus sessions. So we'll be together for a while. So if you can't make the first day, you still have more opportunities to join. So for next week, we are talking about leadership disruption. So this will be before I start the intensive because the intensive starts at 11 a.m. and we are doing the episode at 9 a.m. and we're talking about the leadership disruption by playing it safe, maybe costing you a whole lot. So whether that's in money or whether that's in influence or impact. So you don't want to miss that episode. And like I said, I'll be hosting that before I do the intensive here on LinkedIn. And so here are the things that I want you to do as we end today's episode. I want you to subscribe to the show. Yes, you can watch it free or here on LinkedIn, but you're missing out on a complimentary gift and you're missing out on updates, insights, and secret content. So to subscribe to the show, go to drvernitaglenn-white.com/remarkable edge. But all of that is in the featured section as well. So I want you to subscribe to the show and so we can take this off screen, right? And then if you be sure to follow me again here on LinkedIn for more leadership insights, but you can also follow me on other platforms as well. And then again, join me next week for another Power Pack episode of The Remarkable Edge. And remember that bold execution leads to brilliant breakthroughs. So I'll see you on The Remarkable Edge, and I'll see you next time. Hopefully in the Affluent Leader Intensive, but definitely back here on our next episode. Bye.